Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome Juan Campoo. And
Thank you.
and you're originally from South America somewhere. Where was it?
Yes, I am. Well, I consider myself a planetary being, actually a soul, like you.
Yeah,
But I happen to be born in Argentina. In Argentina,
Argentina.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And what are you working on these days?
Oof, what am I not working on these
What
days?
are
It
you not
feels like too
working on?
much. Maybe that's my problem.
Yeah.
What am I working on these days? So it's actually already for a couple of years that I've been developing these models
Mm.
to actually give people the tools to use anything on psychology, philosophy in a visual, intuitive way that allows them to see what they're doing with their own systems, with these gifts that the universe has given them of their mind, our bodies, and do it in a way that they can actually, master their own experience every day, feel better, feel less bad, empower themselves to take the actions they want to take to make the impact they want to make outside. And it's a process that lasts a long time. I've been developing those models, writing books about it, and very shortly after the book is ready, in a couple months, then developing programs, coaching and training programs for that. So yeah,
It's kind of like psychoanalysis for yourself, yeah?
for sure, you
Yeah.
could really put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a fun, visual, intuitive way. Let me put
You
it
know,
that
like
way.
really easy psychoanalysis for yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's very. I'm glad you say that, because I think one of the problems with psychology, psychoanalysis, therapy is that it can be so technical that you depend on an expert like a psychologist, right, to do a process like that.
Mm.
But one thing I realized some years ago is that there were technology allows us to revolutionizes our lives. And
Mm.
back then, when you wanted some code on your computer, you needed a coder,
Yeah.
a developer. Today, you have Wix, WordPress, all these
Yeah.
drag and drop systems, and you do yourself everything, right, without
Mm.
code. And with these models, I wanted to do something like that, some kind of visual interface that
Mm.
allows people to know what they're doing in their minds, that creates suffering, that creates limitations,
Mm.
and to visually also make some very quick intuitive changes that that stops that and that empowers them.
Okay, let's show us your maps.
Ooh,
Let's see what's going on here.
nice. So this is it. This is one of the three models that I use, visual models, to simplify philosophy and psychology, and it's called the Mind Canvas. It is a little baby monster that continues to eat and grow its way. It's difficult to tame.
Okay, as in like it keeps growing and new bits coming into you, like
Yeah,
you're learning about it and growing it.
exactly. Which is kind of like a good feeling, because it shows that there's something here that wants to manifest, that wants to get out into the world. Yeah, so it's basically called the Mind Canvas. Let me then continue. What I say here is that, and you probably also, your people listening to this podcast, this video, we are aware of the role that the mind has, first of all, in this 3D world to allow us to live, to survive, to thrive. And at the same time, we also know that, like Buddha, like Jesus, like most enlightened people in the history have said, in the mind lies also the root of all suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when we transcend the mind that we actually can get into a piece of bliss, enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So this model comes to help most people out there that want to become aware of what are the ways that you're using your mind in a powerful way,
Mm-hmm.
but also the way that is limiting you, limiting
Right.
your consciousness development, limiting your emotional states every day, and limiting the actions you have that has an impact on your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if this is true, the question was, what is a simple model that shows you how you're using your mind and how that affects your emotions and therefore your actions in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And I came across basically with two dimensions, these dimensions of time and the dimension of interpretation. That's why you have kind of like 4 quadrants here, because I consider time and interpretation to be the 2 lies that humans tell ourselves.
Lies, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Right.
well,
Yeah.
in the Course in Miracles concepts like that anything of this world doesn't really exist, kind of.
Correct, right? And
Yeah.
actually, I think in the last 50 years, quantum physics, science in general, has been proving the fact that there's no such thing as a objective truth, right? That everything is relative, even atoms itself, and subatomic particles. Matter doesn't really exist. Time is also a mental construct that our mind puts together to kind of make sense of all the craziness going on in the universe. But it's really our perception of time. It doesn't really exist, apparently. But the fact that we believe that past exists, and we have the past, the present, and the future, is where the ego is born, which is also proven by science that the same area in our brains that we use to think about the future or the past, it's actually the same thing. And it's where our idea of ourselves and time resides. So every story you tell about what you're able or not able to do in the future, every story you tell yourself about where you come from, is activating the same parts of the brain, which are just stories. And those stories, awareness into them, and you can change your life by changing your stories. So it's all about ego, the stories we tell ourselves. And so time is one of the lies we tell ourselves, but because we believe it and we talk about it, it determines how we use our minds. But if we transcend that, as you say, with A Course on Miracles, transcending the notion of time liberates us from this lie, and therefore allows us to tap into higher levels of consciousness, which is not the topic of this module. This module is to help us stop using the mind wrong a little bit and use the same dimension, the same lies, to tell ourselves better stories. That's what it is. So of course you have the past, which is the memories that we have. We have the present, which is our perceptions, and we have the future, which is our imagination, right? And then we have the other dimension, which is interpretation. And interpretation can be positive or empowering. It can be, which of course puts us in self-empowered, positive emotional states that affect our actions, our possibilities in a positive way. It could also be, neutral, factual kind of thinking, where we see the facts and not positive, negative interpretation. And of course, the negative one, which puts us in disempowering emotional states, and therefore block us to take the empowered action that we want to take or need to take. So I guess you get the point, right? And if you consider these two dimensions, that gives us some quadrants, right, in the mind canvas. And you have the positive past, where is our memory. We use our memory in an empowering way. And in this corner of our minds, we can think of our good moments, successes from the past that we've lived. And the beautiful thing is you can do it right now. The people listening to this podcast, this video, every time that you think of something someone you loved, a good moment with someone you loved, or a great example, a great party, or a great vacation, it is very difficult to not feel in the here and now, in the present, the emotional state that you felt in that time, right? If you think of a favorite person, your favorite puppy, or whatever it is, it's very difficult not to smile. But at the same time, the same thing happens with the negative, right? We're going to talk about it in a moment. But in that present, positive past, we have this empowering memory that makes us feel right now in certain ways. And we can tap into those memories to change our emotional state in the present, and to empower us to take the action for the future that we would like to take. And so it's the same thing with all these quadrants. We can use our empowering imagination, which are our dreams, our visions, mission, goals. And the same thing happens with the negative past, where we can call it the disempowering memory. And some people are great at using this. Actually, they use it so well that they limit their life so hard they are not aware of that, right? They think of mistakes, they think of failures, these words that mean actually nothing, because as well as I do, that failures and mistakes are just the way we see factual events, right? So you could say
do you think there's a possibility of actually using this negative thinking in a productive way? Like looking at our failures and our mistakes and going like, what can we learn from it, or something like that?
Well, the fact that you asked that question shows exactly the kind of mind you have, right? The mind canvas, because I would say that when people are exposed to this model, lesson number 3 or 4, after you know how it works, is what you're saying, is recognize that the failures and mistakes are there in the negative because we usually see them that way, most of us, most of the time. But the moment that you say, wait a second, and you look at that failure, right, with air quotes, and you say, what really happened? And you take it into the neutral, the factual mind. You say, what happened is that I had a goal of, for example, my first attempt in business, right, I failed financially in my first attempt in business 6 years ago. But what is fail? It is your first attempt in learning. That's actually, if you look at it factually, you tried something, you didn't get the results that you were expecting. And is that a bad thing? No, that's exactly what you need.
So you feel like it comes out of, it removes itself from the negative past once you look at it in that way.
Exactly. So it
more neutral. Yeah.
In other words, that quadrant exists as long as you choose consciously or unconsciously to keep things there and to see it negatively.
Right.
And there's some people that say, if I wouldn't have failed in business before, I wouldn't be so successful as I am today.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have my heart broken 3-4 times, I wouldn't be smarter at choosing my partners today.
Yeah.
And it's that realization that usage, mining the learning points, the insights in the factual experiences that we have in our lives, what prevents us to see things negatively, but even more important than that, to turn those things into gold, into positive memories that support our decision making, that support our feelings and thoughts in the present moment. Right?
Cool. Yeah.
And the same thing, of course, with the disempowering imagination. Where is the location of our fears and worries, right? Among other things, of course. And just, of course, to keep it short, all these quadrants generate, of course, have different effects on us. So feelings and other consequences, like, for example, when you think of the past positive, you can tap into pride, confidence, self-esteem, joy, and all these quadrants have these consequences to you. Inspiration and excitement, confidence and motivation reside in the kind of thought process towards the future positive. Of course, sadness, hatred, shame, and guilt are the consequences of thinking of the past in a negative way. And when we think of the future in a negative way, we can tap into fear, anxiety, and stress, and so forth and so on. We can see that each one of us, but also famous people, right? They have the tendency to use one quadrant more than other ones. So, for example, typical of something Donald Trump would say, my whole life is about winning, right? I almost never lose. A lot of people could argue that. And another good example is, for example, people like Elon Musk, Walt Disney, and Steve Jobs. And it's typical of Elon Musk, which is revolutionizing every industry we know, basically. He thinks like this: I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right. So the kind of thoughts that we have, the things we tell ourselves and about the world and about ourselves, determine how we feel and what we're able to do and not do in this world. And it's not just about what people, what famous people there are, but the self-talk that you have, right?
Hang on, have we got some famous people with negatives?
So you want to go there? I was trying to save some time, but
no,
good.
Looks good.
So yeah, you know Michael Moore?
Yeah.
Then again, this is just what I thought of.
Okay,
you can think of yourself.
Michael Moore, looking at the.
But every time I think about this guy and I see documentaries, there's so much time in these documentaries invested in the present and past negative, about what's wrong, about everything that's being manipulated, all this energy that is negative.
So that's really interesting because Michael Moore, I get the sense that he's doing a really good job and he's a very positive kind of person at heart, and yet he's actually putting a lot of focus in this. And so that kind of answers my question of how it's possible to use that quadrant in a positive way. Correct.
And actually, if you think about what you're saying, what would be the complete opposite of him? Still trying to maintain his intentions, the impact he wants to make in the world, right? With awareness, with insight for change. Buddhist monks, right? You have this very famous French Buddhist monk. What's his name again? With his famous TED Talk. He wrote a famous book also. But all these Dalai Lama, all these speakers, they don't tell you what we need to stop doing. No. They're telling you, they're painting a picture of what it could look like and feel like if you would do what you could do. See? So instead of focus on what we need to stop, we can focus on what we want instead. And you know what happens if I tell you to stop smoking, the first thing you have in your mind is a cigarette. But if I tell you to have a, healthy lungs and a lifestyle that supports your goals, you cannot think of a cigarette. You don't have these awful images of what you want to stop doing. So that's the power of how you use your mind. And just to satisfy your thirst for images.
Yes.
Yeah, and completion. David Icke, for me, is a good example of this, right? If you read his comments, if you see the things he talks about, this conspiracy theorist, it's all about that, right?
It's all about
never hear him
possible futures, the negative future.
Yeah. I never hear him talk about, hey, you know what, let's create a world of love and trust. No, let's stop all these people who are trying to manipulate and dominate us.
Yeah.
And of course, if depending on how you use your quadrant, you can catch yourself if you project your thoughts and you listen to what you're saying and thinking, you can see yourself, for example, saying in the positive past, things like, I wanted, I did, I had. So your words show you the kind of thought process that you're having and whether you're empowering yourself or disempowering yourself. When you talk about the future, what are questions that a coach would ask you, basically activating the future positive, is like, what could you do? What would you do? What would you like to do? Right? A coach almost never would ask you things like, what are you trying to stop? How is that making you miserable? I mean, it's good. The insights are good, but still it puts you more in that emotional state that you might want to get away from. If you say, people who live in the past and complaining, they talk about all this stuff, right? I never did this. I couldn't. It wasn't possible for me. They were being mean to me, kind of talk that doesn't really empower you. It doesn't help you move forward. I couldn't, I wouldn't, I will not is typical talk of the future negative. So you see that we could analyze so much of everything we do with the mind canvas. Another way that we actually use our mind canvas is in visual ways, right? Not just self-talk, but a bit visual. And after this, I promise you, we can stop and have a nice interaction. But I think it's also funny. The images normally that we hold in our minds are subconscious as well, right? You know that most of our thought processes are subconscious. We're not aware of them. That's why they impact our lives so pervasively. And someone could say, hey, you know what? I finished the race in second place. Damn it. And you can see it in the words they use, damn it, in the energy they talk about it, in the, the conclusions they take about it. But if we look at it in a neutral way, she could say, hey, with no emotion, I finished in the second place. What do you think about it? I have a neutral conversation about it. What can I learn about it? What did I do that I could have done differently? Those are neutral kind of talks. And then, of course, you have the other side. You could say, hey, I finished in second place. How amazing is that? Right? From all the people, from the 500 people, I finished in second place, especially considering that I was not feeling well this morning. How amazing is that? So at the end, you see that there's no truths. It's all half lies we're telling ourselves and half truths we're telling ourselves every day that determine how we feel and what we do in life. Same thing about the future. You could say, oh, this meeting tomorrow is going to go awful. The clients are going to be bored. They're not going to like my presentation. Or you could say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do my best. And if they don't like it, that's good. Next time I could do a better job. If they do like it, great. Whatever happens is going to happen. I cannot change that. Or you could say, you know what? I choose to think how it would go great. How would I like it to go? What kind of reactions would I like to have from people? And what should I do or could I do to get those reactions from them? You see that when you hold positive images in your mind, you start asking the right questions that lead to a more empowering use of your mind. Better questions, better answers, better images that make you feel good and that make you prepare better. Now, how does that sound so far?
The obvious conclusion is that we should focus more on the positive, but I don't believe that's quite what you're saying.
Exactly. I agree with you. That's not what I'm saying.
That there is a lot of, motivational speakers out there who talk about the positive future as, you focus on your dreams, you make them happen. But I don't think that's what you're saying, actually.
Not at all. You're totally right. Actually, I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think I'm saying here?
Well, I think your heart in the middle is a big telltale sign that you think that there's something important in the middle.
Well, For sure, actually, if we think about any enlightened person, what they've said in their teachings, right? Buddha said it, the middle way, the path, the middle path is usually in the middle, where we, collapse the wave of frequency, the positive polarity, the negative polarity. It's in the middle that truth resides, that love resides. There's many people talking about this. However, what I say for people that want to start taking charge of their minds, their emotions, the first lesson for me is to first recognize that all of these are possibilities. That most people who are suffering, who are having trouble, many conflicts with other people, suffering, depression, negative emotions, the first realization is, first of all, you're creating this with your mind, how you're thinking about things. Second of all, if you're using your negative corners of your mind more than the positive or neutral, you might as well just want to try to balance it out. And then when you have a more balanced mindset, but it's already healthier and better, but then also, if you're lying to yourself and going to the negative, why not keep lying to yourself, go into the positive? At least you're going to feel better, right? At least you're going to feel better. You're going to be smiling with a beautiful smile you have, Alexander, this camera, right? It immediately puts us in a better state of mind, which affects our emotions, our health, our state of mind, our actions, and therefore the impact and influence we have in the world, right? And finally, I agree. If you have experiencing having a balanced mindset or a more positive mindset, then I would challenge you to go to the next step. When you realize that that's also a lie you're telling to yourself, because in the negative, there's a lot of lessons. Is our whole system, our whole body and mind were designed or developed to communicate to us, to say, hey, you know what, that future negative, you could fall in that precipice. If you do that with your thinking, you could lose your job. So it's imagination that's put there to help us make better decisions. The problem is when we are victims of those stuff and we don't actually make choices, conscious choices about the information our mind is giving us, right? And that's when things go a little wrong. But also, let's say that you stop doing that and you use the information the right ways. It could be the right ways for you, but a next step would be, how can I use that information for the good of others as well, right? What is this telling me? How can I be a better person? What could the other one be fearing right now? What would the other need right now that it's not getting? You see that present negative, you could say, well, love, respect, recognition, acknowledgement, being seen. Well, that's great because I can see that because I ask myself these questions. Now I can have more compassion. I can have better conversations that actually make an impact in the other one's lives. You see? But if I am just positive and saying everything is great, people are great, I'm great, I might miss these chances to make a positive impact.
It's interesting. How I'm thinking how I would use this map. Can you bring it up? Can you bring it up again?
For sure.
This is how I would use it. I did a.
And by the go ahead.
I did a response to the concept of being in the now, and basically I was saying, like, it's just a choice. You can be in the now, you can be in the past, you can be in the future. And the question is, where do you enjoy yourself? Where do you get the positive experiences from? And being in the now is one option that can provide positive experiences. But some people get it more from being in the future. They find their inspiration from their dreams of the future, and that creates that positive experience. And then, so if that's you and you find that positive experience through being in the future, then be in the future. Think about the future. If you get it from being in the now, then be at peace, be in the now. And if you get it from thinking about the past and all of the good things, memories that you have in the past, and that gives you your positive experience, then why not go there? And then, of course, there's the fourth point, which is, if some of us like to experience the transcendent reality that is beyond the mind, which I guess is like on the outside of this map, or or I don't know, it's the fourth one. And for some of us, that's a place where we find our joy. So why don't we just find where you find your joy and go there? That's my.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to use what you said at the end to kind of summarize this whole thing. The question is, are you enjoying your life? Are you inJoy? Funny that when I say in my signature in my emails nowadays, I chose to end up with inJoy. So it's like enjoy, but inJoy.
Yeah.
Comma Juan. So it's like I am inJoy, and I also hope that you enjoy as well.
Yeah.
And then that's the first thing. If not, life is too damn short and beautiful and special and miraculous to not be enjoying. Right? I mean, millions of years of evolution for this body, which might be one of the most perfect machines and creations in the history, to be suffering, to be worried, to be living small, whatever small means to you or big, right? It's just a pity, a waste of magic from the universe and from life. So first of all, yeah, enjoy. Now, if your level of consciousness development, personal development, only allows you to feel good when you get what you want, well, then your happiness, your joy is not dependent on you, and you're going to suffer half the time at least, right? But if you take control, power over your own emotional state with, for example, this tool, then you know that you can feel good and be enjoying anytime you want by taking your mind to, for example, the future, and just say, what would I like to achieve this year? How would my life be even better this way? What would make me happy right now? Well, if I fix this problem that I have with this person, right? This negative present. And if I would fix that, take it into the future positive, how would that look like? What would I do? What would be the ideal partner that I would like to have next year? All this stuff makes us feel good, inspired, happy. And that's great, right? What do old people do? Because old people have less future ahead of them. They spend a lot of the time in the past, positive past, telling stories, very long stories about the good times and the good things they lived and the beautiful people. And that's how they actually tap into that emotional states that they want to activate for themselves. Wherever it is that you can find this joy, realize that your mind is a factory of chemicals. And any emotional state is just a bunch of neurotransmitters and chemicals that you can tap into, activate by directing your attention to the right corners of your mind in a conscious way. Now, coming back to what you said first, Alexander, is that if I would have a second program after this program that I'm going to be delivering with people, that program would be, okay, let's now transcend the mind. You stopped using the negative mind. You're more empowered and balanced. You're using the negatives to learn from the messages and turn it into gold. Great. And now transcend the mind. I put it in the center. You say, is it in the middle? Is it outside? I think that in the model fits well what you're saying, in the middle. Because in the middle, if you think about it, is the present, right? And the middle is also no interpretation. Neutral interpretation. You might also think there's no thought. There's just perception. There's just awareness. Because the moment you think, I could do this, you're going to some corner. You're using language, you're using the mind to go somewhere in a mental trip. But in the presence, there's silence. There's awareness. And as you know, even better than I do, knowing your story, your history, your experience, it is when we stop our thoughts that we can actually go into higher levels of consciousness, right? Go ahead.
Not entirely, but yeah, it's to some extent it's true, but our Western kind of alternative concepts of spirituality that have become popular are very much based on Buddhist thought, which is very much about stopping the mind. But I spent some time in Israel and in Kabbalistic Jewish thought. They actually achieve transcendence by thinking. So they actually take an opposite point. Of course, in the transcendent experience, there's not much thinking, but I think we have to be a little bit careful to not overdo this concept that you stop thinking in order to achieve transcendence. Because, you know, a great master, here's the great koan about Buddha. You know the koans, the teaching questions, the impossible to answer questions that help you to think.
Some people might call it mindfucks.
yeah, totally. So there was a book of koans, and someone added an extra one to it because he went like, this writer of these koans, you really know what you're talking about? So he said, if you can answer this one, then I will say that you know what you're talking about. Buddha said, stop, do not think, do not speak. The ultimate truth is not even to think.
Yeah.
And then he went on a great speaking tour of India. How does that work?
Well, I think through what I'm trying to put forward with this model, I think I can answer that, at least what I interpret from it. So most of the audience that are going to be following this kind of podcast from Gaia have a lot of, I would say, personal development, or at least interest in it. Would that be a fair statement?
One would hope so. Yeah.
Exactly. Otherwise, they wouldn't be magnetically attracted to the posts, to the website, to the philosophy, to the vision. So I think it's fair to speak in this language then. Like I also believe I am a soul. I'm a spiritual being. I'm energy, and this energy, operate from different dimensions. And the world that we see around us, this computer, you on the other side, it's just a third dimension that we understand, but we operate in different dimensions at the same time. Would that be a fair statement to say, Alexander? Do you think? And then what I think is that then in each dimension, we have tools, and we have, for example, here we have matter, and we can use matter to do things. We can use the vehicle to go from A to B, to make a better impact for animals in some country that they're suffering. So it's just tools that we can use for good or for evil or for nonsense, right? And when I think that Buddha, when he says something like that, it's no different from Buddha going and talking all around the country. It's just he's using his voice, his knowledge, his insights to put seeds for the people who needs those seeds at that moment. That's what they need at that moment, and that's what he can do to eradicate suffering a little bit more. But someone who is more prepared, right, comes and asks an even more powerful question. Then Buddha says exactly what that person needs at that moment. So it's just choosing our battles and choosing the way we can make an impact in someone's life. That's the way I see it. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think we have to say that there is a kind of thinking that exists in this central point, in that heart. A kind of thinking that is not like ordinary thinking. A kind of thinking that is inspired messages, inspirations that come through our thoughts, rather than rational thinking where we're trying to chew over a problem. You don't chew over problems in that space, but inspiration comes and translates itself into words and into thoughts.
Correct. Actually, I agree with you. It is in that place where there's no rational, normal human thought, where that's why I say that you transcend time there, and that you can actually enter in higher consciousness levels of being, from where actually in those higher levels of consciousness where I think we're all connected. And because there's no time and space, you tap into knowledge, you tap into events, you tap into other beings, where inspiration comes, right? And you say, this is what needs to happen in the world. You get a vision, you get an inspiration, you get a calling, you get a solution to a problem in the most subtle ways, right? Which we interpret with our minds, saying, I can do that, right? You go into the future positive. It says, yeah, I feel I need to do this. I got a calling. But sometimes you get those messages not in forms of words or images. You just know it. But it's clear, and it might be, a very complex idea that if you had to put it in words, it would be actually like a manuscript, right? Sometimes it happens that I go into nature to download, to connect in this way with the center, right? To meditate and to connect. And then I get this download of information that I have to run back to my house and start typing because I'm going to lose it. There's just so much in one feeling, in one thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you. And yeah, so once again, there's levels and levels. The first level I want to put forward is to people, just become aware that you're creating your reality just with your thoughts, right? If you say you have a stadium, there's, Manchester United versus Barcelona, whatever, football club. And Barcelona scores a goal and you have 20,000 people saying, yes, how well, how good. And 20,000 people on the other side saying, this sucks, this is awful.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just so much suffering on both sides, right? Because nothing is good or bad, it's just what it is. And that's the first step. If people understand this first step, and then they say, you know what? Like if I think of myself, I go to a stadium today, or if I watch a football match, and no matter who scores a goal, if the goal is artistic and nice, and I get so happy for the person and for the world that we can see this beautiful magic taking place, and the dexterity, the skill, or a dancer, doing a beautiful jump. It's just
and then
poetry.
you get other people that have a completely different response. Umberto Eco,
Exactly.
Umberto Eco, he wrote The Name of the Rose. He's a very famous Italian writer. He wrote this article about how when he went to a football match, it made him question the existence of God.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
So yeah. One of the things I like about this, there's quite a popular expression about being in the now as the path to enlightenment at the moment. And I think this explains a little more in detail, that it's not just being in the now, it's being in the now without reference to judgment about that now.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can be in the now and be grateful for what is going on at the moment, that's not actually a transcendent experience. And we can be in the now and we can kind of suffer, and that's also not a transcendent experience. It's
Correct.
That central point. So that kind of adds a little bit of detail to that thought.
And actually, I would already be happy if people can understand this and say, at least, hey, I am aware that I'm having this transcendental experience. Of I'm aware that I'm having these negative thoughts that are causing my emotions. Whatever it is, I believe truly that is self-awareness the first step to anything, to our well-being or to the world's well-being. Yeah.
In many cases, it's the only step, because when we try to change things that are about ourselves, and you try to force yourself to change, it actually creates resistance. And it's when you don't try and change, but you just pay attention to it, that the real transformations happen. So very important.
Exactly. And actually, I think this takes us to maybe the last slide that I wanted to show. I created a process, a 5-step process to use your mind canvas in a more empowering way to transform any kind of self-limiting thought process. And let me go back to this PowerPoint and jump into the slide I'm talking about. I'm going to use your words to actually take me here. So I call it the arise process. I call it arise because it's a way of any kind of negative thought or self-limiting thought process. It's actually also low frequency of vibration, right? It doesn't help your body, doesn't help your mind, doesn't help anything. It's just, imagine a low frequency of vibration. And with the mind canvas and the arise process, you can elevate the vibration of your thoughts, therefore the quality of your thought process. And it's only 5 steps. And funny enough, it starts with awareness. If you're not aware of what you're feeling, of what you're doing, of what you're thinking, how can you ever make a conscious choice to stop something, to change something, right? And so one question you could ask yourself, very easy, is how am I feeling? Or what am I doing, right? Once you become aware of, wait a second, I am not enjoying. I am not, in the potential emotional state that, this amazing body and mind has at store for me as a potential.
Eckhart Tolle has a really good technique here. Instead of asking, how am I feeling? Ask, am I feeling anything?
Even better, because yeah, that's brilliant.
Like you even ask yourself, hang on, am I feeling something? Because if the answer is no, I'm not feeling anything, well, that's cool too. But most likely you are feeling something and you really notice
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna compliment what you said. That's cool too if you don't feel anything, or because it could also mean you're so detached from bodily sensations, the communication of your body and mind, that you're destroying yourself probably by taking actions, making decisions, and having unconscious thoughts that are just really messing up your life and your system, your health, and everything. But if, for example,
or else you're
like
completely
me, right?
enlightened and you're just not feeling anything for the other reason.
Right, exactly. So you choose to not tap into those, yeah, because you know there's also lies and they're keeping you grounded to this world, right? If you're feeling positive emotions as well. So I agree with you, and I find it challenging at the same time very rewarding that we keep talking on a higher level and then we come to this plane and we're using the model to go to different planes. So yeah, so at least just become aware. And if you ask yourself what you propose, right, your question of, am I feeling anything? If the answer is no, ask yourself, why, right? Now, if you have no thoughts at all and you're in the present, you're in a transcendental moment, great, awesome, good for you. If you're not feeling anything because you're so detached from your feelings that you don't know what's going on with you, well, my friend, I think you have a nice opportunity. Let me put it in positive future terms. You have a nice opportunity to develop your self-awareness, because you might be causing so much pain for yourself and others from your unconsciousness. You know.
Okay.
So let me go through this. Yeah. So how am I feeling, right? And then realize that if you're feeling negative in some way, take responsibility. It's also one of awareness and responsibility. Actually, I saw yesterday, they're 2 of the 5 emotional intelligence skills according to the emotional intelligence world of study, field of study. So take responsibility. Stop blaming others for your emotions and the things you can or cannot do. Realize that the thoughts that you have, you're creating them by interpreting things the way you are interpreting them. So say, I am putting myself in this emotional state, and ask yourself the question, how am I interpreting the situation? And then the moment you realize that, so for example, you might say something in the lines of, yeah, he's a jerk, right? He's offending me. He's not respecting me. You see, jerk, offending, not respecting, all negative kind of labels, interpretations of behavior. And then the moment you say that, take it now to the neutral. Take it to the neutral and activate insight by, for example, asking your question, how is that, those thoughts, those interpretations, not true? How am I distorting this? How am I missing information in what's going on here? Because if you ask the other person involved in a fight or something, hey, are you being arrogant? Are you being disrespectful to me? The other person would say, of course not. I'm being honest. I'm trying to help you, right? So stop telling stories about what's going on and challenge those into a factual way. What is factually happening here? The other person may be telling you what they think you need to hear. That's a fact, without interpretation. And the person feels that with that energy, this high energy kind of way of saying it, might influence me and motivate me to actually go ahead and use the feedback. That's looking at facts, or at least imagining what facts could be. But immediately when you put yourself in this kind of thinking, you take out all of the negative energy from the negative thoughts, and you realize, it's actually quite okay. Maybe even nice. Thank you for trying to help me and give me feedback, you see? Which takes me to the next point. When you take the energy away from it, now you can switch it or shift it towards the positive. I like shift better. And ask yourself something like, what is the empower opposite of the negative thought that I have? Right? So for example, instead of saying he was disrespecting me, what is the opposite of that? Oh, he was helping me. He was actually respecting me. And say, how is that actually true? The moment you ask yourself this question, you will find in some corner of your mind the right answer to that question. And usually it's there waiting for you, because all truths are partial. The moment you ask the right question, you find the truth. So how is this person giving me feedback, screaming at me? Not disrespecting me, but respecting me. Well, he's actually caring about my personal development. He's helping me to stop with this behavior that he sees it's affecting my life. I love that.
Yeah.
And immediately you put yourself in a more self-empowered emotional state, in a more love-based state. And finally, right, this is just some example of questions you can ask. And the program I'm creating for people, there's a bunch of variants of this and questions you could ask yourself. But the last one, if you neutralize that negative thought process and emotions, you saw facts, and you transform it into a more self-empowering, true story, then the last step is to embody that new mindset, to make it actually come true, not in your mind, but in the world and in your body, really. A question you could ask yourself is, how will I embody this new mindset? In other words, go to the future positive and say, what actions could I take right now that would prove this new mindset right? How would I act if I am this person, if I am this person that thinks this way? Well, I would actually go and thank that person instead of saying, shut up. I would actually go and ask them a couple questions about what they're trying to say, about their intentions. I might even actually go and tell them that, hey, thank you. And the way you say this to me is not helping me. It actually makes me think that you're doing this for the wrong reasons. And then the person says, well, thank you. And they can increase their impact every time they give feedback in the future, you see? So we can co-create a better world, internal world and external world, by taking responsibility and being aware of our own BS, bullshit in our minds, transforming that, arising our thought process, and taking action, embodying that, manifesting this new way of being and thinking.
Are you familiar with the work of Byron Katie?
Definitely, and it's very much in line, I see now.
Very much in line, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. She is a wonderful being, and she's done an amazing work. I would say there's a lot in common, and there's a lot of things that there's an intersection. There's a Venn diagram, right? There's things that I could use from her that would take this to the next level. There's things that she could use from this that would take it to the next level. And one question I asked myself is, there's also not just Byron Katie, but other people as well, right? Dr. DeMartini, there's Dr. Zimbardo. There's so many people touching on this stuff. Buddha himself, right?
Of course, yeah.
And when I realized this, the first thought, look at this, I'm going to use the mind canvas on myself. Immediately, the first reaction was, ooh, I cannot do this. I would be infringing on rights or whatever it is. Or who am I to compare myself to them and try to bring this work to the world? What I was doing, interpreting it negatively. Present negative. Who am I? I'm no one to do this. I'm not good enough to do this. The moment I catch myself on that, because I realize it doesn't make me feel good, but also stops me from making the impact and pushing this forward to people, I said, what am I doing? And then, you know what am I doing? They are great. I am great. They have certain life age. I have also certain life age. They have experiences and knowledge. I have experience and knowledge. They have a certain way of showing their information. I have a certain way of having the information. And it's all valuable and it's all needed in the world. So now I'm going to turn it around. Who am I to do this? I am just like them. I am the person people are waiting for to say, hey, I have an idea. Instead of saying nobody, I am the right person for the right people waiting for this message. You see, I have to smile the moment I say things like this. And I feel amazing. And I feel motivated to keep having podcasts like this one and standing in front of people, my friend. Yeah.
Another thing that we didn't really look at, but I'm interested in is, I think that from that heart space, you've shown a circle around the heart, which I think shows that you can stay connected to that center and at the same time be touching on all of the other quadrants. From the center, you can still look at the positive future and the negative future and each one of those.
Definitely.
And so
that's why you see, when I was playing, as you were talking before, I was playing with the mind canvas. And the circle is like an eye, is your mental eye. And the little ball is like your eyeball, right? Or the iris, whatever you want to call it, just going into different quadrants, showing that where you look at with your attention inside your mind is creating your emotions. And it's just a matter of choosing where to look. That's why I say the right questions that you ask yourself, point your attention to other corners of your mind. If you say, yeah, who am I to do this? Or why should it work, right? I mean, with your body posture, you're showing that you're looking at the present and future negatives. But you could also ask it with future positive and present positive. Who am I to do this? You're looking for the right answer, you see, to empower you. You say, what? Why should I do this? And then the answer comes, because people need it. So it's that mental eye, right? The kind of thing. That's what I was trying to achieve with the circle and the little ball.
And I think that if you see it as being like, we can stay connected to the positive and to the center, and still kind of touch on each of these quadrants, then that's where they each come into their own. They each have their strength. So if you're looking at the negative future, for example, a negative future, you know, in the problematic form is, okay, I'm scared of the future and I'm worried, I'm anxious. But the positive form of it is called risk management, and it's a really important job. Yeah, you look at the problems that might come up, make a list of all of the problems. How am I going to fix those problems? Okay, we move on. And then there's the positive future. You're looking at it in terms of, I mean, here is my hopes and dreams.
Correct.
And hopes and dreams can actually could be quite dysfunctional. But if it becomes actions and motivations, then it's a much more functional.
So what I see in general for most people out there is that they go around life with this left mind canvas. There's a lot of negative talk. There's a lot of negative interpretation and shame and blame, finger pointing, and life, whatever. I'm afraid this could happen. I want you to go into this side. This is natural consequence of the right side. When you work on your mind canvas, when you practice with self-awareness and develop the skills, is that there's little negative. And the negatives are just questions that you use to immediately pass it into the positive. Because the moment you risk manage, or you manage risk, you took a fear into the neutral. Yeah, this could happen. And actually, how is this great? How can I prepare for this? You take it immediately into a more positive future.
So, you know, I'm more into the transcendent than into the positive. So what I've been looking at is maybe a third level on this, where the heart and the circle would become bigger.
Oh yes, beautiful. I need to use that. Can I use that on my model?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I take it? Yeah. That's gorgeous. Yeah, just beautiful. I see the animation already happening. Beautiful. Oh man.
And then you can go, we can think about the present, we can think about the future, and we can think about the past and the negative and the positive, but without actually getting drowned in it. You know, you're still in your center.
I love it, man. I love it. You know what it does with me, your idea? If I imagine, like, if I would do that, and then imagine doing that, and there's suddenly I transcend all that, how I would embody that, how I would be, is just so present, smiling and loving and connecting, because there's no need to talk. There's no, just the idea of it makes me feel so good and connected.
But you know what? Really effective too, because you're able to go like, we're going to be future focused, and we're going to make things happen, and we're going to look at the past and criticize it, and we're going to critique all of the problems that have happened, and we're going to do some improvement process, and we're going to look at the past, and we're going to celebrate it, and we're going to do all of these things without losing that piece. All of the time.
Exactly.
The action and the piece can come together, and this is part of what I believe we need, is to bring together the peacefulness and the action. So at the moment we have people of action and we have people of peace. I want to see people of peaceful action, and that's what we would require, that expansion of that circle.
I agree with you. 100%. Actually, thank you, because you're collaborating with this model. I told you, it's a baby monster that keeps eating, keeps growing.
Keeps growing, yeah.
Conversation like this. So I really appreciate that. And actually, maybe this is a good time to I was asking myself the question, what could we give to your audience and also my audience when they see this? That's how can they actually get their hands into knowing this more, using it for themselves?
Exactly.
Is it okay if we talk about it for a second? Yeah.
Give some links. Give some somewhere we can find it.
So one thing is, if you go to my website, you can see I did just a one-pager with storytelling about what I do, what I stand for, and what is it based on. So there's a video about the Mind Canvas you can watch. Probably we're going to put it also in the description of this video. And there's an assessment you can take. This assessment is a 15-minute assessment that you receive immediately in your email address, a report on how you're using your mind today through the Mind Canvas, right? How resourceful is the use of your mind in this 3D world that we're living in? You can see, for example, what is your score, how well you're using your mind resources like your memory, imagination, interpretation, mental, emotional strengths, what are your opportunities and weaknesses when it comes to the use of your mind? What is your potential for personal mastery and empowerment? And you have even some exercise to reflect on these insights and some extra resources you could use, right? And then last thing, so please do that. And there's some extra resources at the end. The last thing I wanted to show is the following. I need to move this 1 second. Yeah, here it is. You also have, if you go to juancampo.com, free gift/free gift, which is going to be also shared with you in the description of this episode, is the download of the first 2 chapters of my upcoming book that is coming in the next couple of months, called The Mind Canvas, A Revolutionary Approach to Personal Mastery. And there you can find, for example, about the 4 things people want, the 4 elements of personal mastery, which we tapped on that on this episode. There's self-awareness, there's self-wisdom, self-regulation, and self-responsibility. And then the ABC of life, which is another model that is the base of the Mind Canvas. So first comes the ABC of life, which I also call life self-dynamics. It's understanding the dynamics between life and yourself, what you think, feel, and do. And then the Mind Canvas comes on top of that to give you control of the mind, because your mind determines how you feel, what you do, and what you get in life. So all of this in the first 2 chapters of the book, you can download it for free, and then you're going to be notified when the book is being released in the next months. And yeah, those are things people can do immediately.
Okay, fantastic. So juancampo.com.
Yeah, and then /free gift for the book, /MRA, which is Mind Resourcefulness Assessment for the assessment. But I think we can share the links, right, with them?
Yeah. No problem. Cool. Okay, so get in touch, guys. Ask questions. Tell us what you think, and we'll follow up.
Exactly. That's all it takes, is really ask a question. Ask a question to yourself. Am I feeling something? Ask a question about what you would like in life. Are you enjoying yourself? And you can ask me a question. Get in touch. Oh, another thing you could do is get in touch via social media, right? I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and those are my 3 platforms. And let's start a meaningful conversation that can actually have a great impact in your life, in your future. And if if you have enough, congratulations, enjoy your life.
No, if you have enough, if you've got everything you need, then you need to share it. Come and join us and tell other people about it. Yeah.
Ah, I love it. Come in, exactly. So do send a message and say how you want to share and what you want to share. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Osho had the one question was asked to Osho about how he says, like, I'm seeking for answers in my life, never find these answers in my life. And Osho says, have you listened to the question? Like,
listen to the question.
If you've got this question, inner question, and you're seeking for answers and the answers are not coming, it means you haven't listened to the question. First, you have to really ask the question and focus on the question, not focus on the answer, focus on the question, and then the answer will come by itself. So yeah, the question. My friend,
you're basically giving people the essence of the program that is going to come after the book, because
well, that's what you have to do. You have to give people all of the secrets, and then they go, hang on, I need help to put it together, and I want the program, because all of the secrets, the big secrets, they're big and they're great and they answer all your questions, but they're not actually that easy.
it's
to
actually
apply.
exactly the application of it. And then also when you try to apply it, is realizing why for some reason you're not being able to. Is it inner sabotage? Is whatever it is.
You know, like why do people go to counselors, like psychotherapists, and the psychotherapist doesn't tell you anything, they just ask you lots of questions.
Exactly. And I would like to tap into that, because if you ask me, what do I do, what am I busy with, there's something I need to share. What I do and the kind of work I do when I work personal with people in a group as well, but mostly one-on-one, is I take and I give people, well, they give themselves through my questioning, the insights that they get through years of therapy or counseling. They get them in no time. But it's not just that. Is instead of focusing on the past and understanding why I'm having the thoughts I have, what my parents did to me when I was 3 years old, that's great. But you cannot drive your car looking at the rearview mirror. At some point, you need to get those insights, if they're even needed at all, which I really doubt it sometimes, and just look in front and go where you want to go. And so what I do in a coaching process is, in a very short amount of time, I create a space where people can actually transform the way their minds, emotions, and actions work, and stop, finding also shame and finger pointing to the past and to others. Take ownership of your life, your emotions. Become free from the need of judgment, from the need of understanding, and just become the potential that you are as a being, human being, as a soul. It's right there. Like you said, you just need to transcend the need to think of others and me and thought and future and past. And when you let go of all that BS, you are, period. And it's actually quite easier than most people think. But I think that's why people like you and me exist in this world. And like Byron Katie is to help people in this process. Information is great. Go read a book. Transformation is better. And that's what people need, I think. And that's what people like you and me are here in this world for.